We like plants because they do cool things, like not die, like grow, and like bloom. So have a tasty beverage close to hand, and join me this week while we take a look at 5 plants who are being cool in the plant room. The first plant this week that's being cool in the plant room is the Zygopetalum Orchid. I got this orchid from a lady I worked with. She was not happy with it. It didn't bloom for her. It didn't really grow. And she knew I had had some success with orchids, so she gave it to me. It came in a small plastic pot in bark, and it just had the word Zygo on a sticky note on the side of the pot. So I brought it home. I didn't know anything else about it. I'd never even heard of a Zygopetalum. So I looked it up, found out that it pretty much likes what orchids like. And so I did that. And it's been here almost 5 years, probably even more if I think about it. And it's never, ever bloomed before until this week. And the blooms, I hadn't expected this deep purple color, but I'm not at all disappointed. There's one more bud that's just starting to open, so in the next couple of days, I should have 3 beautiful blooms. It's very cool. I am very happy about this. I wish it hadn't taken so long, but as usual, it was probably operator error. This plant really started to take off when I started feeding it. It has been happy. It's been putting out all kinds of new growth for years. It typically lives back over there, but giving it some food this year, giving it more food than usual, seemed to bring on these blooms. And boy, if there was ever a plant doing something cool this week, this is it. Orchid Zygopetalum. The next plant that's being cool this week is actually a group of plants. They're my Lithops. Lithops comes from the Greek words meaning stony face. And I picked them up last year just on a whim because I thought they looked very interesting and they were very inexpensive, and why not? You probably can't see too much of them at this angle, but I'll put some close-ups in. They're succulents that come from Southern Africa, and I have not had the best history with succulents. There's quite a few succulent bodies buried in the backyard where no one will ever find them. But these were worth a try. I was warned head on that the problem most people have, the reason that lithops die, is from overwatering. So my solution to that was to plant them in pon, in small pots with very good drainage, and water them sparingly. Like I would water them every 2 weeks. Just run around the edge of the pot. That's it, we're done. So when lithops are ready to put out new growth, the 2 fat leaves on the top start to separate, pull apart, and you can see the new leaves growing inside. And my research says that that's the point when you stop watering them. You want the new leaves to pull all the moisture from the old leaves. And to encourage that, you don't give them any additional water until the old leaves are dry and desiccated, and you can just pull them away. So the last week or so, these have started separating, and you can see the new leaves, which is very cool. I'm very excited about them. I did have one casualty. Again, it was undoubtedly operator error. It was a much larger lithop, and I think it perhaps wanted a bit more water than I was actually giving it. I didn't know you could actually kill a lithop from underwatering it, but apparently you can. But I was so nervous about overwatering that I went in the other direction. But the rest of them are doing well. Once the new leaves are all in and settled, they're supposed to bloom. I don't know if they know that, but I'm hoping that they do. They got the memo about splitting open. So here's a fun plant for you to try that really requires minimal care. They want a lot of light. I have them in a south window, and you have to remember to water them, just not very frequently. If you have one, it's a Lithops. If you have two, they're Lithops. So that's how you call them. Now that I've had some success with them, I can start figuring out which different species each one of these are. But there's a fun plant for you to try that's been very cool this week. Lithops. The next plant that's been very cool and almost surprising this week is this Hoya occultata. I got this because of the pictures of the blossoms I saw. They're a beautiful, dark yellow, orangish color. They're going to be different from my multiflora, who's still in bloom. He lives over there, and he's still in bloom. But the flowers look different, and the color is different, and that's what I wanted. He's a thin-leafed Hoya, and since he arrived, has been doing very well. It came in with these 3 original leaves and has put out these 3 pair. There's another pair here, but the part that's really cool is there's a peduncle. And he's only been here 3 months. I even think, I know you won't be able to see this, there might be another peduncle right there, which would be very cool. I want him to do what my multiflora does. Do that, okay? That would be very cool. I would be very happy. The multiflora leaves, those of you familiar, they have sort of a slight ribbing, dappling, corrugated look. That's the word. These, it's more pronounced. The leaves are very, very pretty, very narrow. I'm just excited about this. It's a good purchase, and hopefully let's say in a month or 2, I can show you blooms on my Hoya occultata. But this has been very cool for me this week. Hoya occultata. The next plant that's been being very cool this week is my Hoya deykeae. I'm very, very happy with this plant. It's turned into something so much more than I initially expected. The leaves are sort of heart-shaped. They're narrow, so they're not like Hoya loki, which is fine because Hoya loki is not one of my favorites. But when the plant arrived, the leaves were kind of this, I don't know if you'll be able to see this, kind of pale and kind of chlorotic. The veins were strong, and you could see them. And, there was some damage to the plant, which often happens. Once a Hoya leaf is damaged, it's damaged forever. Unlike us, who get over our damage and baggage. It started off in a bark and sphagnum mix, and it was happy there. It put out a little bit of new growth. But when I moved it to pon and self-watering pot, it was much happier. Also, I think the grow lights made a big difference. And it started putting out these gorgeous, big, green leaves. If they had continued like this, I would have been happy with it, but slightly disappointed. But these are just freaky gorgeous. I'm very pleased. There's a new growth point here. It's been just chugging right along. Um, I can't say enough about this. I was feeling okay if it was going to be like this, but having the plant look like this, man, that's just great. The leaves are like plastic. They're pretty rigid. They're thinner than like a carnosa, but they've got some splash on them. There's some texture, and this beautiful deep green color is just a thing of beauty. A friend of mine is going to get a cutting soon, so we're just happy with this. This is a good thing. I've read that they can be difficult and problematic, but man, this one's just been cool. So, take all that with a grain of salt about it being difficult. Punish, self-watering, feed it, give it good amount of light, and you're going to get this kind of results. Hoya deykeae. The next plant that's been being cool for me this week is Hoya sigillatis. Hoya sigillatis and I have a long and troubled history. Not this plant, just the species in general. I think this is sigillatis number 4. The first one I bought as a little cutting, and I thought, I know what I'm doing. I can root a Hoya, we'll be fine. I was wrong. So I waited a bit, did a bit more research, and ordered another cutting because I knew what Hoya's like. I knew how to root a Hoya. And unfortunately, I was wrong. So we waited a while, we did a little bit more research, and I ordered a third plant, a small rooted plant, because I wasn't going to make the cutting mistake. I was going to get something established. And I still thought I knew what I was doing. And that one didn't make it either. Although I have a feeling that was due to flat mites. Just from the way in which it died, I think flat mites were the cause of that. And we'll talk about sigillatis and its delicacy. So I waited a bit more, did more research, read what Doug Chamberlain had to say, and ordered an established plant. It wasn't big. It probably came in a 2-inch pot. It was in bark, which I was familiar with, and is a happy growing medium. So I got it in, settled it down, left him alone, didn't bother him, had him on a grow shelf back down here. And as soon as I saw new growth, I thought, okay, I'm going to put him in a bigger pot. I'm going to do it now, and I don't have to mess with him. So I mixed up some bark and sphagnum, and lifted it out and settled it right into the new pot and surrounded it. And one of Doug Chamberlain's comments was, if you find a place it likes, don't move it. So I did, and I haven't. Hoya sigillatis was one of the first Hoyas I saw that made me say, I want one of those. I think it's absolutely beautiful. I love the leaves. I love the splash. It's everything I like in a Hoya in this one plant. And this week, for the first time, I've got blooms. I'm told they smell very slightly of caramel. It's still, it's early in the day. They just bloomed today. So we may not get any scent until early evening. Hoya sigillatis can be a bit delicate for me, which is why I think the flat mites hit my third one so hard. Because where the leaves, the petioles, where the leaves join the stem can be fragile. So you don't handle it too much, you don't beat it around too much, You just kind of leave it alone. It likes its moisture, but it doesn't want its roots sitting in water. So I've got this in, as I said, in a bark sphagnum mix, and I water it twice a week. I give it a good water through on the weekend. And then Wednesday, I give it another little touch up. It's under a fairly strong light, so you can see some of the sun stressing. I'm always not a fan of sun stressing, but on this guy, it looks kind of cool. And he lives over here, probably, well, about that far, whatever that is. That's 12 inches, 14 inches under a grow light, under 40-watt grow light. And he's just been growing up a storm. I'm so happy with this plant. This is such a cool plant. If you find one and want to take it on, it's going to want a good airy mix. And by airy mix, I don't mean putting some bark in your soil. I mean maybe putting some soil in your bark. So airy mix that will hold a little bit of moisture, but not water. And you're going to be prepared to water him twice a week. Lightly, but twice a week. He wants moisture. And you're going to get rewarded with what I think is one of the most beautiful Hoyas out there. So this is number 5 of plants being cool this week. This is Hoya sigillatis. So thank you for coming by to hang out with me a little bit on this weekend, at this week's end. I hope you enjoyed some of the plants I featured, and I hope you'll join me again next week when we take a little time, have a tasty beverage together, and take a look at some more plants that we're enjoying this week. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and thanks for watching.